Hello, I'm Kevin Berger. We hear a lot about gender inequality, but what does it really mean? For the Women's Foundation of Minnesota, gender inequality includes sexism, racism, poverty, violence, homophobia, health disparities, and a lack of women's leadership. These are all complex issues that ultimately impact everyone. Here to talk about their work on creating awareness and finding solutions is Sonny Hernandez. She's Director of External Affairs for the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we have a long list of social ills that again affect us every day. Explain how the Women's Foundation really drills down and takes those words and turns them into funding and causes and solutions.
Absolutely. So the Women's Foundation of Minnesota is a statewide community foundation, and we invest in social change to build equality for women and girls throughout Minnesota.
What does that mean, investing in social change?
That's a great question. So we define social change as systems changes, so shifting institutions, policies, attitudes, and behaviors that limit equality for women and girls. So in addition to investing in individual women and girls, which we think is important, we're really interested in shifting systems so that we can have the greatest and long-term effect on equality for women and girls in our state.
How do you find out what those problem areas are?
We kind of have a three-pronged approach. So we do research, grant making, and public policy. Mm-hmm. And with our research, we partner with the University of Minnesota and some other organizations to really look at some specific indicators. So every other year we have something we call the Status of Women and Girls Report, where we look at indicators around economics, health, safety, and leadership. And it's really sort of a report card about how women and girls in our state are doing. And then we go across the state as far north as War Road, over to Wilmer, down to Winona, and we meet with communities all throughout the Twin Cities to really hear about what are the realities for women and girls in their communities, because we know there's some similarities, but there's also differences in communities. And we really believe that problems and solutions are found in the same place, so we're interested in hearing about what solutions communities feel that they might need.
Now, I understand out of this research you identified sex trafficking, which, you know, I hear this and I'm horrified. I'm thinking, can this go on? And yet certainly the research suggests that it does. How was that identified as an area that we really need to be focused on?
Yep, so for many years, as I mentioned, we sort of have 4 focus areas, and we've funded a number of organizations in our safety area that serve women who are being prostituted in our state. And we continue to hear both from organizations, from people in public policy arenas, that this continued to be an issue in our state. And so we wanted to really lift that up. So we have the Minnesota Girls Are Not for Sale campaign, which has really served as a catalyst to build cross-sector public-private partnerships to end the sex trafficking of children in our community.
I think part of what that campaign was effective as was just really opening some eyes to something we don't want to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we know too that one of the challenges for women and girls in our state in particular, what we do is we use an intersectional lens, so we look at both gender, we look at race, and also place. So we're a statewide foundation, rural versus Twin Cities, and sort of who has resources. And we really know that economic opportunity or lack of economic opportunity can be a challenge. We really want to ensure that there's pathways to prosperity for women and girls in our state.
Research, grant making, all cost dollars. Where do you get your funding?
Well, we have an endowment at the Women's Foundation. We have about $25 million in invested assets. We also partner with corporations and local foundations as well as national foundations. And then we have really incredible partnerships with individual donors. We have a very generous state and we have great partners.
Now, you did mention there's a report card. What's the most recent one say about how we're doing on some of these issues in Minnesota?
You know, we have a long ways to go. I think we've come a long ways, but we have a long ways to go. And sort of back to that intersectional lens, we know that in Minnesota we like to be number 1 or number 2 in a lot of things in education and employment, but there's huge disparities, and in particular racial disparities for African American and American Indian communities, and we see that with women as well. So we really want to ensure investment in those communities moving forward.
You know, there was a time when I would have thought by the time I was this age we would not still be having these conversations, but thanks for making sure that they are still top of mind.
Absolutely.
Great to speak with you today. Now, if there's a variety of ways you can help support the work of the Women's Foundation of Minnesota, if you'd like to learn more, read their yearly impact report, be a donor. Here's their website, wfmn.org. And that's it for this edition of Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Kevin Berger. Thanks for watching.